Sinatra. So today is November the 12th, 2025, Dr. Dina, and today is a great day to talk about consciousness because we are having these geomagnetic storms increasing the CME, coronal mass ejections. So there's a powerful energy being infused into the earth right now. So some say this will help kind of shift consciousness. So you may see this, proofs of this, by the northern lights. You know, the sky here in Nova Scotia was pretty spectacular last night. So it may look like the northern lights or, you know, different colors in the sky. We also might see different interruptions in other radio frequencies. So in radio communication, as I was listening to the radio yesterday, there were little glitches you know, in the radio, in our communication. There also could be interruptions in signals, GPS signals, both on the earth and in the satellites. So it truly can be a reset of this energetic matrix on and around the earth, which is kind of what I'll talk about today in the ladder of consciousness. So the effects that you see, I mean, there could be power outages, there may be interruptions, like I said, in communication, but no, it's a good time to reconnect and think about it as a reset, a cosmic reset. So maybe this video and the meditations that you're going to do yourself may help with that. The energetics of this transformation could affect your nervous system. You may feel a little more anxious, might be difficult, have some anxiety, you could have some sleep difficulties. It could affect your variable heart rate, so you may notice some increased heart palpitations, that sort of thing. It's only going to last for a few days. So, you know, and today is when it starts. So today is when you, if you're going to see some effects from it, it'll be today, and then it'll sort of wean out. Yeah, so it just might be more sensitive, but because of that increased sensitivity, it's a good time to ground yourself on the earth and to meditate. You know, it opens, let's say, a greater portal or opens an opportunity for you to connect to your higher self. So this is the 8th video in a series that I've done in promoting my book that's soon to be released called 8 Steps to Awakening Your Highest Potential. I've had a few speed bumps along the way, so I don't think it's going to be out next week. I'm still working on the cover, and the one mentor that was going to endorse my book has suggested that she can't do that until the new year. So I'm having to sort of debate whether I go ahead and publish, or if I wait for her, or if I do some different things. So I'm at an impasse right now. And so today's a good day for me too, to kind of just sit with it and in kind of humble grace and know that there's probably a higher agenda than what my own little mind and ego can grasp. So the book will be out, and if you're interested in the free product guide, please email me. And then you'll be in our inner book circle. So you'll be notified when the book comes out. You'll also have the opportunity to participate in some promotional things, like I'll have some complimentary copies, digital copies of the book, and also the resources. So dr.denagc@gmail.com, that I'll attach to this video if you want to email to kind of be in that inner circle and to have some other opportunities. I'd love to hear from you. So the videos that we've done so far, I've talked about some of the products, the grounding shoes that allows you to receive the earth's energy. We talked about blue light blocking glasses, because blue light is actually damaging to your brain, makes you sick and fat. So having sunlight and avoiding the blue lights from screens. We talked about the rebounder and balls, stability balls, also health bridges and yoga rolls for thoracic extension, ways that you can open and reset your vagus nerve, which is really important in how you perceive the world. Basically, it innervates almost every organ in your body. So I did a video where I was rolling around on a ball and showing you some ways to open up your heart center and have access, let's say, to that higher awareness. And then in the last few videos, we talked about ways to find your inner peace, meditation, breath techniques, stones, quantum healing devices like the Genius Biofeedback that works on your voice print, analyzes your voice and your picture and where you're deficient in energies, and then plays it back to you in tones, or sound healing, which we'll talk about and I mentioned in those few videos. So today's video is going to be more about consciousness, not so much about products, but I thought I'd take advantage of a geomagnetic storm to talk about the ladder of consciousness, which is why you see me climbing a ladder. I don't know, it's going to be a new activity. Instead of pole dancing, it'll be ladder dancing. But the ladder of consciousness, or ascension, we can see it like the higher you climb on your ladder, the greater your vision, right? If you're at the lowest rung of the ladder, your vision is pretty limited. But as you climb up, you can see a greater vision of the Earth, hopefully headed to Mars and Jupiter, as Frank sings about. But we'll talk about ascension, because the book is 8 Steps to Awakening Your Highest Potential, Assisting the Ascension of Humanity as a subtitle. So we'll talk about ascension not in the way of a body, place where you can go to, or a concept in your mind that you intellectually have to grasp, but we'll talk about it as a vibration that you feel, an authentic, natural vibration that you feel through your heart. And I'll put it into a paradigm that we've already discussed. You've seen this before. I'm going to just review it over with you. This work comes from, or if you want more information, I should say, on this, because it's not exactly how Barbara Ann Clow presents it, but her book, Barbara Hand Clow, C-L-O-W, and Jerry Clow wrote a book called The Alchemy of 9 Dimensions, and that would be a resource if you want some more information on this. But the first dimension is really the iron core of the earth. So when you're sitting, I was sitting in meditation this morning, I said, I must remember to tell my sound bath group this, but when you're sitting on those 2 sits bones, the ischial tuberosities, you're actually connected, to the earth. And then it allows you to have good posture, and that opens the channel for you to receive. Also, when you're sitting on the 2 ischial tuberosities, your tailbone is free. You're not sitting back on your sacrum. And really important, when you're breathing in and out, your tailbone, that triangular bone right at the base, actually, your sacrum actually kind of shifts or moves, and it creates like a pumping action that helps the cerebral spinal fluid move around your brain and your nervous system. So sitting on those 2 ischial tuberosities, on those sits bones, it's not just important for maintaining good posture, opening channels so you can receive that cosmic energy, but it's really important for you personally in your body that you can shift and flush the nervous system with your breath. And the cerebral spinal fluid is the medium, let's say, where your breath can move this fluid around. So your sacrum becomes your pump. So you don't want to be sitting on your sacrum, or you're taking out your pump. But anyway, the iron core, the first dimension is the iron core of the earth. And when I start my meditation, I always say, I feel that support and love of the earth. The second dimension is, this is going to be backwards, is between the iron core of the earth and the surface of the earth. So this is the soil bacteria, the microbes, the fungi, things that support us from below. And as you know, many think that we as humans arrive from the kingdom fungi, and so do the plants. So that is the network underground that connects us all. The trees, it helps the plants and foods grow, and breaks down minerals for plants. Anyway, that's the second dimension. The third dimension is you on the earth in kind of a linear pattern, in linear time and space. The fourth dimension is the things around you. So the government buildings, the governments, the controllers, governments, different churches and religions, financial institutions, banks, casinos, and the music and entertainment industry. So these are generally how the population of Earth is controlled, right, by those forces, 4D. 5D is your heart And this is where you can integrate the duality from the fourth dimension. I'll talk about this in more detail. If this is your first time hearing it, it might sound like Chinese. But the fifth dimension is your heart. The sixth dimension is sacred geometry. And the seventh dimension is sound. So these two kind of come together in cymatics. So you know, if you put sand on a plate and you play a certain note underneath, that sand will form a geometrical pattern. And I'll post, if you scroll down, I posted something like that a few days ago, but I'll also attach a picture to this video if you're watching it on Facebook, where sound can form matter. And this is where I think it's really important right now in our evolution, is to use the higher dimension of pure sound, sounds that are natural in frequency, 432 hertz, to help change matter or reprogram matter. So it affects our electromagnetic body. It also helps you rewrite the stories that you've told yourself. It affects your wiring. And today in a geomagnetic storm, woo, it's a good day to rewire. So we can use sound to change the geometry, to change matter in you. So instead of looking at dense treatments like, treating matter with matter, like pills and lotions and potions and injections and matter with matter. Imagine treating higher dimensions, changing matter. You don't get the same side effects. You get more profound healing. You get to that place where you can authentically vibrate, right, through your heart. So in today's video, I'll go over some of the concepts in that paradigm that you've already seen twice before in different videos, and put it into a framework of consciousness. Thank you all for being here. By the way, hi Patsy Hall. Oh my goodness, so good to hear. And Melanie, hi. Music is great therapy. Yes, thanks for that, Melanie. It really is. It resets, but the right kind of music too. So at 432 hertz, it actually calms our nervous system. This is a harmonic of like natural frequencies, like from the Sherman resonance, 7.83 hertz, or the 528 bees' wings when they're buzzing back and forth. It's a natural harmonic. Now you can use music and frequency to irritate and disconnect you from your natural vibration. And the cell phones and our cell technologies are doing that, right? They're affecting our biofield, the energy around us. So the controllers know that too, but once we know that information, we can consciously choose what we listen to and what we're surrounding ourselves with, because ultimately that's the vibration that we adopt. So the ladder of consciousness. Okay, so if we're below the earth, we're dead. We're buried, right? So this is 3D on the earth. Hopefully this is where consciousness starts. Because if we're lying down on the earth or we're under the ground, we're unconscious. And they can measure unconscious at an emergency triage by using a pinwheel or by using a pinprick, right? They determined if you can feel this, and say ouch, right? You're conscious. So that's kind of a very basic level of being alive and alert within your body. But then there's different levels of that understanding and consciousness, and that's what we're going to talk about. So at the 3D level, where you are on the earth, right here. I don't know if you can see that right here. That would be, again, the basic place. That would be like kind of a starting point of consciousness. But if you're only at that level, 3D, you're alive, you can feel a pinprick, but you're probably being manipulated by the controllers. So I'm going to present this in a way of shots, because that's something we can all relate to. And it'll quickly divide people that are, wanting to ascend, or people that are wanting to stay in the 3D matrix. But those who are in the 3D will listen to the controllers. So when the government, the churches, the media and entertainment industry, like Dolly Parton and other people who told you to inject yourself, you will listen. Why? Because you are at the 3D. Right? You're on the earth and you're being controlled by these controllers, the 4D. The 4D is also a duality. So it's not that, you know, they're all bad. There's some great things that happen within churches when people gather and are working for the community. But if they're asking you to inject yourself and mask yourself in order to be a part of that group, you know, then it could be problematic for you, maybe not. But know that that fourth dimension is that you actually have a choice. There's good and bad. There's two sides to the story. But as you move up to the fifth dimension, you can see the two sides and you integrate them. So let's give you an example of that. So let's move from 3D now to 4D. 4D would be the controllers. So like Tim Houston, Justin Trudeau, Carney, Trump, you know, all these people in the political arena or at high levels in the music and entertainment and media are the controllers, and they themselves sometimes will know the difference. They will know, for example, that the shots had mRNA and spike protein and other toxins that weren't the greatest for you. But they'll make a choice whether to do it or not, but they're getting paid to carry through an agenda. So in the fourth dimension, if you know that, you know, you could be just above knowing that there's a choice. If you're in the fifth dimension, yeah, I was going to mention this. I've got to keep checking my notes because otherwise I'll go off on tangents and forget important things. When we talk about injections, let's put it into the paradigm of a bigger paradigm of just injecting toxins, a lower vibration material into your divine structure or into the divine structure of your pets, because this is, you know, shots are big now in vet circles, right? Where magically little kittens are getting coronavirus so they can have a $500 injection of remdesivir, you know. So let's keep it in the wide. And ostriches are being in the ostriches. There's so many posts on my Facebook. People are sad about the ostriches. Those ostriches were injected with bioweapon. They're a hazard to have on the earth. And they're also reproducing, it was a lab experiment basically, reproducing other immunoglobulins, and it was a big lab experiment. So if you're, again, just mad at that and angry and sad, you're only seeing one side. So that tells you that you're still in 4D. I was there, right? I was really angry about everybody having to be injected, you know, and I could see that there was an issue, but then I came to the place of seeing that, you know, those that injected themselves, for example, have now learned to own their power in a different way. Like I can see that there's two sides. And some people in this lifetime can't get to their spiritual home, which I'll talk about, in this body. Like they needed to transition in another way. So when you can see the two sides, you're no longer bound by the emotion. It empowers you because you're working from an integrated heart. So when you see those people that are angry about the ostriches, I think they're just angry about what's happened in general. And oftentimes the anger you project outwards is the anger that you haven't addressed within yourself. So they're probably angry about maybe taking the shots themselves. And, you know, this is a projection outwards is my feeling. But yeah, so if you listen to a controller of any sort, whatever that is, and you inject their values into you and submit your power to a consciousness less than your own, you will feel disempowered. The way to not feel disempowered, again, is to own your power, is to know both sides and to move beyond it into a higher dimension, which is the fifth. So through the book, I give different examples and questions and ways that you can look beyond that, look beyond the trauma, or look beyond your one perspective. When you see things from the lower rung of the ladder, you're just seeing one level, you know. So the questions actually encourage you to come higher on the ladder so you can see a greater vision and move yourself or pull yourself right out of those controlling matrix. So the 3D is integrating your heart, integrating the dualities. There's always two sides. Actually, there's sometimes a lot more than two sides. But if you can't see the two sides, you'll be left in sadness, grief, anger, resentment. You have to ask yourself, where's the other side? And if you're angry and sad now about the ostriches, ask yourself, where's the other side? They were being a danger. They were injected with bioweapons and nanotechnology like people were. And they, were creating a problem. So there's two sides to every story. When you can see two sides, you're working from a loving place in your heart. And John DeMartini has the best definition of love, I think, that I've ever seen, and it's the simultaneous synchronicity of complementary opposites. Boom, that's where you can fall into your heart and where you can truly love. So when somebody dies or something dies, an idea, a person, if you're feeling sadness and grief, you're only seeing one side. So true love is actually seeing a benefit in the crisis, to seeing the support in the challenge, to seeing the good in the bad. And in those times, you release the baggage of emotion, and that's when you can climb higher on the ladder, right? When you don't have all those emotions in your backpack. So yeah, finding the balance, that puts you into your Venus heart, and in that place, Venus actually looks like it's moving backwards in time and space. So many people will say, when you're working at something you love, or when you find that place of love in your heart, time actually ceases to exist, right? It's a timeless, ageless place, as Deepak Chopra says, when you're in your heart of love. So it's only when you're living in that space, time, the 3 or 4 dimensions, that you're aging. So the more you can find that balance, you can defy the rules on the earth. You can defy gravity, literally, and allow yourself to ascend in many different ways, metaphorically, but also if you think about the Christos energy that I mentioned before, and when you're meditating and you can bring that cerebral spinal fluid up to clear your brain and your pineal gland, you'll actually feel lighter in your structure. Some people even see light, and there is a meditation in the book called Pineal Gland Activation where I talk about that. And Patty Broussard, who is the sergeant in the Secret Space Program, had given me a manifestation exercise years ago that I also included in the book. So the 5D is integrating. And why are we wanting to do this as a team is because our collective vibration, once we can integrate and we can share this information with our family and our friends and the loved ones around us, it allows us to go higher. It's like we're not carrying their baggage. So if we can all move at the same time, all for one, one for all, we can all ascend higher. If you think, oh, I have this knowledge, and you're judging other people who are lower down on the ladder, just think, you were there once too, right? You had to start at the bottom of the ladder in order to get where you are. So the people that are highest on the ladder actually reach down and give their hand, right? Give me your hand, as Frank Sinatra was saying. They lend a hand to the people who are lower on the rung of consciousness. And instead of judging them and pushing them down further and stepping on them and trying to kick them off the ladder for their beliefs or what they did or what they didn't do, you're actually reaching down to help them, right? So I think this is important right now, is to ascend as a group. And in the book, I talk about that. The book is really a map and a mirror. A map because I talk about different structures that I've learned that people have shared with me, and then how to use your body. So an article that I wrote that I'll attach here talks about purifying the body, because the body is your temple. This is like your car. This is your grease and oil change, right? And it helps you, it's lighter. Many of the ancient traditions say you need purification of the body before you get illumination of the spirit. And, clearing your channel allows, again, for you to be fulfilled in in many different ways. So I'll attach an article that I wrote called Detoxing and Revitalizing Your Body, which is part of it. And then, like I said, the exercises, the map of your mind. So asking you certain questions and giving you certain paradigms that you can use your mind to help understand and to know these principles. But then ultimately, it's an experiential journey where I'm giving you some exercises like the pineal gland meditation, for example, where you can feel it. You can feel that authentic vibration in your heart. And today, the geomagnetic storm might be a good day to try to meditate or pray or, just have a quiet time. Whatever word you want to put on it is just having a quiet time with yourself where you turn off your social media, you turn off your phones, and you just have a quiet time where you're connecting with your higher self or your source or your God or your great spirit or your Buddha or whoever that power is that is beyond yourself. Today is a good day to do that. So exercises and practical tips. I mentioned the pineal gland activation. I give you a reality wheel and choosing your reality, like a little manifestation exercise. I talk about the Eye of Horus and how the Eye of Horus, an ancient Egyptian symbol, how the different, how it's broken down into fractions, and my ideas, my own personal ideas of what those fractions mean for us as far as ascending and expanding our awareness and consciousness. So again, if you're interested in that free product guide, you can email me and I will love to do that for you. But there was a few other things that I was going to do. Yes, so I was going to give you some information first. So I don't know, I'll post this picture below. You won't be able to see it because it's all backwards. But this is taken from a page, really. It's a visual taken from a page of David Hawkins' book called Power versus Force. And this particular chart comes from page 68, where he actually gives a number representation to different emotions. So he's actually numerized consciousness. And it's not in a way of frequencies, they're just arbitrary numbers, but I'll read out to you what this is. So the bottom one, maybe, So the bottom ones here are shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, pride, courage, neutrality, willingness, acceptance, reason, love, joy, inner peace, and enlightenment. So it goes from 20, guilt is 30, apathy is 50, grief is 75, fear is 100, desire is 125. So if you're still grieving or you're still mad about something, your vibration is down here. It's lower. So not only are you feeling contracted in your body when your vibration is lower, you're more easily manipulated. You're more by those controllers in the fourth dimension. So the higher you go in your consciousness, the less you're controlled in that matrix. So, and how to, if you're fearful, again, in the book, I go back to that and I give you kind of like a conversation you can have with your fear and an example of how to use your fear as fuel for this ascension instead of allowing it to hold you back. Anger, desire, grief, there's many deaths right now. Deaths of families, deaths of jobs, deaths of ostriches, deaths of people, and processing that is challenging. So in a grief scenario, again, it's asking yourself where the balance is, because love is eternal. Maybe in some of those cases, that entity couldn't evolve in that body and for some reason had to let it go. Maybe it's teaching those that are left on the earth that love goes beyond a physical boundary, and it has forced them into a higher dimension of love, eternal love. So finding that balance brings you up to love, which is one of the highest vibrations. And David Hawkins in his book Power versus Force gives it a vibration of about 500. which, I don't know, coincidentally, 528 Hertz resonates with the heart resonance. But some other books that I like about consciousness, David Icke, The Reveal, Walt Whitman, he was listed as one of the cosmically aware. Cosmic Consciousness, William Buke was a great book, and he listed Walt Whitman as one of the cosmic aware people on the planet. So then once I read that, then I got Walt's book, and I agree, I think he's amazing. So his poetry just gives a different level of understanding in a very gentle way that it's easy on your mind and your heart. And then I liked this book, Psychic and Symbol, Jung, Joseph Campbell, The Companion, that was helpful. And this was a gift from a patient years ago. If she's watching, she'll know I love this book and cherish it dearly, The Prophet, Gibran. So these are some other books that might give you some food for thought or inspiration, but this particular one came from David Hawkins. Consciousness. So I think I've suggested all that I wanted to talk about. We'll just maybe do a summary, and then I'll go back and look at any questions. But the ladder of consciousness is the higher you go, the greater your vision, the less you're controlled within the matrix. So you then become, instead of being manipulated and controlled with power and force, you become a co-creator of your reality, of the universe, really, because you're not held by the values and authority of those controllers. You own your own authority. And that is what allows you to ascend to higher levels. So we talked about the 3D matrix. 3D on the earth, you're living in linear space and time controlled by the controllers. This is the duality. Once you can unite the dualities, you move into the unity of your heart. This is where you're powerful. This is how you connect to the higher realms, is through your heart. If you haven't found love, if you're still in anger, if you're still in grief, if you're still in those lower frequencies, there's no way that you can move beyond that. So it's like collapsing and balancing those emotions first to come to your heart, and then you can move into, the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, and above dimensions of ascension, which is really a vibration more than a place. It's a feeling, it's an authenticity. And again, the importance of doing it together, because our consciousness, it kind of powers our spaceship, right? If you're having to ascend, and you're trying to ascend, but everybody around you is still in grief and mad and angry and plugging in, swear words to the matrix, that affects you around you. So there's an incentive, let's say, to really love deep. And that means reaching your hand down to somebody who may have a lower awareness or consciousness, not in judgment, because judgments are really just what you haven't owned within yourself, and you're projecting it outwards. But is to really love them and to think to yourself, I was once there. What worked for me? This is what I think. What piece of information worked to help me break through that paradigm? And then, I may offer it up. And then I say bless and dismiss, because some people aren't ready for the information you're wanting to share. It's okay. It's okay. All that the Great Spirit asks is that you do the best that you can with what you know and have, and then leave the rest up to him and her. Leave the rest up to the Great Spirit, right? It's not your job. Your job is to offer your greatest loving service, and then honor wherever that person is. If they want to stay on that rung of the ladder, well, that's fine. You tried, right? So offering help, loving service without judgment, being humble, right? And trusting in a divine intelligence that's much greater than what our consciousness can even grasp at this point. We're working from a limited resource when we're in our own mind. It's only our heart that can feel the higher dimensions. When I talk about that, opens my heart. It swells up into my throat. So the book I mentioned to you many times. I don't know when exactly it's going to be ready, but if you email me, thank you to the people who have already kind of connected in our inner group circle, and they have the resource guide with the different products. So these are just products that I've been using for years. And I've had, interest, other people wanting to kind of sell me products and have me put, their information in the book. But it's really things that I'm using and I feel are tried, tested, and true, and they've helped me, and I just want to share. So I thought it would be good to put it in a resource guide. It's going to be on the website eventually. Because that way I can change it, right? If the website changes, or if I find another product that I like, instead of putting it in a published form that I can't change, if I can put it on the website. So by being in that inner circle, you'll have access to the information, not only now, but as Barb will tell you, as I keep changing and adding things in and expanding, I'll include that and be able to send it to you. So this geomagnetic storm that's happening right now, these powerful solar flares are resetting the energy on Earth. So now is a good time to kind of find your authentic self, to just sit, using your breath, holding on the inhale and exhale, because those are little portals, right, into other dimensions. And the ancients had talked about that, right, how matter and spirit are separated only by breath. So holding your breath, sitting on your sits bones, so your sacrum has the power to kind of pump that cerebral spinal fluid to bathe your brain and the pineal gland, which is really like the gateway, one of the gateways to higher knowing. I think your heart is the heart is also connected. I feel like there's a channel from here to here, like a light channel. You're plugging in your lights. And then if you're interested, to email me, like I said, dr.denagc@gmail.com. So I'd like to finish with an invocation that I put. Before I do that, let me just go back and see, because I see there's been some comments here. If there's questions or comments, thank you all for being here. So Frank says, Jason Christoph, walk and talk about the ostriches. Great, thank you. If you wanted to put in that link, I love Jason. Also, clan mother Karen McDonald has done a lot of information, and she even has pictures of like thermography of the ostriches, where you can see the bioweapons and see how they were being used as an experiment. So she's a great resource. Dan says they have ostriches, they didn't have the bird flu, but because they were research, what else did they have? Yeah, they were injected, I think, is what I read in some of the information. But anyway, the bottom line, I haven't posted too much about the ostriches because it's the fourth dimension. You're either for or against. You just say, that's happening. There's a good and bad to it, and just get beyond it, right? Let's find something higher vibration to talk about, and trust that everything that happens for a reason, right? It's either the universe, you look at the universe as a predatory place where everybody's out to get you, or you think that everything's being done for you is done in your best interest. And then your job, the onus is on you to find the blessing in it. So, I won't be posting any more information. I do one post about the ostrich. That's all I'll do. Barb says, we grew up in my house, dog eat dog. It took most of my life to realize that we do need to help one another in every capacity. Oh, thank you for sharing that, Barb. Yeah, and the people I feel that are highest on the ladder will do that, will reach down and will help other people. The people that are still trapped in the lower dimensions feel the need to control and compete. So I even think some of the controllers, right, have that insecurity within themselves. They're kind of out of control and they feel powerless. They're not connected. I talk about this a little bit in the book, but they're not connected to their source. So they have to use you for their power and excitement. And many people talk about that, how humans are being used, harnessing our loosh or our energy, right? Our creative energy in order to propel these other forces that aren't connected. So when you see someone who's really, competitive and, challenging and not really putting other people down, it's because they're down. people that have the highest vibration, people that are higher, like I said, on that evolutionary ladder, that have found their heart. There's no need to compete. Why would you need to compete? Oh, that's only in the lower realms, right? The higher realms are where you're using your mind and your meditation to enhance the vibration of our earth and of people, humans, beings, animals, plants that are on the earth. So thanks for sharing that, Barb. That's an important point, that you can really tell a lot about a person's own evolution by their thoughts, their words, and their actions. What they're saying, right? What they're posting about, how they're treating you is really a reflection of who they are and where they are in their evolution. So you can offer a helping hand, but again, at some point you might need to bless and dismiss. Frank says, one of the most important things you can do is to forgive yourself. Thank you for that, Frank. I would suggest that forgiveness, and I studied this with John DeMartini, and I think he had a good point, that often forgiveness, I know I'm going to be wrapped on the knuckles for this because it's a tenet of many of the churches, but if you say, I forgive you, you're actually taking a place of self-righteous, like the person is lower than you. And if you're having to forgive yourself, you're admitting the same thing, that somehow you were wrong, somehow you were less than divine light and love. So I would say, forgive yourself more love, to give yourself more love, and realizing that whatever, has happened in the past, whatever you've done or not done, as John DeMartini says, I think he had that mantra for himself, whatever you've done or whatever you've not done, you're worthy, not only of the divine love outside, but your divine love inside. So forgiveness, I think it can be a bit tricky. It can put you into that realm of separation and duality, like somebody's higher than the other. We're all equal in the eyes of God. And I use that word just because words, I said this on another video, I think I may have offended some people. I didn't really mean to offend, but sometimes words are used, like God in the church, or people or citizen in the governments. Sometimes words are used to spell us into a certain reality. So whatever word you use for that great spirit is fine. If you can just understand, that some of the words and terminology have been manipulated in order to manipulate you. But whatever that is, whatever that divine presence is for you, it's fine with me. Fine with me. We were all there once, so it's just timing. Yes, thank you, Dan, right? And that's where we have, that's where we can truly reach out with empathy and know that, that person is reflecting some part of ourself. And by helping someone else, that's where the forgiveness maybe comes in. It's not really, it's giving to yourself. And giving to yourself is actually giving to the other person, right? If you're helping someone else who's maybe at a different conscious or different level than you, you're actually feeling good about yourself. So these, power-hungry industries, right? Pharmaceutical industries, sex trafficking industries, the genetically modified foods, right? All these industries have to control us, right? Using power and force, because they're working from the lower three chakras: survival, sex, money, and control, right? Where the ascension process works from those three chakras, right? From your personal power to your heart, right? Where you can feel love and share love. Your throat, where you can speak truth, honestly, that's aligned with your head and your heart. And your third eye, where you can see a greater vision, right, of what's happening. You've already balanced the dualities, and that's when you connect the crown chakra. So again, you'll know people by their words, actions. And Frank has left I think that link might be for Jason. Ray, thank you. And thank you, Barb, too, for everything you share. It's so transparent. Oh, that makes me want to cry. Thank you. I appreciate you, too. because we're a team, right? And when we can help each other and bring each other up, we rise. We're not wasting energy kicking our other humans and friends off the ladder. So I'm going to end with this invocation that I started the book with. And I think it just really puts a lot of things that we've talked about already into perspective. Before time breathed its first song, we were light, birthed in the mind of divine, dreaming ourselves into form. Then we descended into matter to master the dialect of limitation and to touch what only spirit could conceive, to carve love into flesh and motion. Now the great awakening calls a pulse within every cell, a whisper through the stars. Beloved, remember. Remember your radiant design. Remember your voice in the choir of creation. Remember your feet planted in the earth. Remember your crown open to the heavens. We rise not by departing, but by becoming integrated, conscious, luminous, authentic beings that we are. Each breath connects us to our inner and outer worlds, uniting spirit and matter. Each step is a return on the ladder. Each step is a return. Each heart is a source of light within a greater light that unites us all. So together we rise. Together we return to our spiritual home. So I'd love to have you connect with me through the email if you're interested. Again, I'm not sure when the book's coming out, but again, I've had to sort of release some of my ego about that and just realize that I answered the call, I wrote the information, and I'm actually sharing the information in a timely way. I felt like I had to have it out before the summer solstice, and if that doesn't happen, then I've shared the information with video. So I'm off the hook to my calling through the video. But if you're in that circle, then I'll be sure to notify you right away when it comes out, and you can have access to the product guide. So thank you for being here. Thank you for climbing your ladder. Thank you especially for reaching back and noticing who's behind you, and lending a hand. I don't know why that is touching my heart so much. It must be an important message in this geomagnetic storm that we're having, but helping each other. And the people that are doing that, the most powerful people, are bringing others up. They're giving power. It's like if your heart is so full of love, you have to share it out. You're not sharing sadness and grief. You're trying to empower. And those who are trapped, I just want to say this, those who are trapped in those lower densities, if somebody's in grief, I've often worked with coaching patients who are grieving about a death, for example. And as I suggest some other ways of looking at that death, how did it empower them? How did it empower them in all areas of their life? How did it actually serve, a greater purpose? Where is the form of that person changed? How is that energy transformed? What have you learned by it? As I start asking questions, sometimes they will say, you are mean, you are cruel, you are unkind. Their perception of me not supporting their pity, me not supporting them in the lower realms is perceived as being cruel instead of trying to empower. So be prepared, if you're reaching down and trying to share information of any sort, information on the shots, the bioweapons, the controllers, you may not get a warm welcome, to say the least. You'll be thrown out of groups, you'll be called different names, but when you're at home in your own heart, it doesn't matter really, right? You've got your own home, and you've got your higher service, your higher authority, and that will lead you. That will lead you. So go out there today. Meditate, find your center, good day to kind of connect and ask your higher power, for guidance. Reach for the stars, envision and achieve your personal best. And most of all, enjoy the journey. This is Dr. Dina signing out.